Hello folks, and welcome back to another ship review episode, and today's episode is going to be about this Polish premium tier 7 destroyer, the Blyskawica. I'm going to basically go over stats, look at a battle, talk about recommended modules, recommended captain skills, and of course at the end of the episode answer the important question of whether or not she's actually worth it or not. As of the moment, she is on sale still on the North American server for a couple more days, so hopefully I can get this episode out before the ship disappears from the premium stores, and you can actually hopefully grab yourself one. So without much further hesitation, let's get going. Alright, so let's take a look at the stats of the ship first. In terms of survivability, the Blyskawica right now is absolutely top of the class. She has more HP than any other tier 7 destroyer, and in fact, it's even comparable to some of the tier 8 destroyers. I mean, I think a Benson with a B hull only has 15,400 HP. So the Blyskawica, comparable to tier 8s in terms of HP pool, which means that she can pretty much go into any engagement, assuming full health on full health, against any other tier 7 and lower destroyer with a high degree of confidence that she will come out on top. This is coupled, of course, all that survivability is coupled with pretty damn amazing firepower. If you look at the Blyskawica, she's armed with 720mm guns. So if you look at the guns, the rate of fire isn't great and only 9.2 rounds a minute. So I do have to say that, when you fire salvos, it's not super fast, not super spammy. But the guns are good. The arcs are really nice. They turn reasonably quickly. The dispersion is good. Not only that, but they have a pretty good fire chance, which for a destroyer is actually quite important, as you will see later. When she's up against things like battleships, her fire chance is definitely quite good. The range is also really reasonable, 12-kilometer range, and I'll get into the range a little bit later. This ship, without any sort of concealment skill, is capable of invisifiring at 12 kilometers, because these 120mm guns are also really stealthy in terms of the range increase they have when they fire. So the Blyskawica guns really good, although a little bit slower on the rate of fire. But then again, when you have the arc that this ship has and the HP pool, she is one really hard destroyer to kill off if you happen to be in another destroyer. Well, on the flip side, she can do quite a bit of damage. The closest comparison, I think, right now in the game to the Blyskawica, if you compare it to another ship in terms of style of play, I think, would actually be the Gremyashi. The Blyskawica can be really described as a Gremyashi on steroids, because aside from the fact that she has pretty phenomenal guns, her torpedoes are also pretty decent. She's equipped with two triple 533mm torpedo launchers. They don't do the highest amount of damage, 14,400, so damage is kind of average, maybe even below average. Speed-wise, they're also not amazing, 57 knots, but they have the range. They have 8-kilometer range, which, when combined it with the surface detectability of the ship, means that the Blyskawica can actually invisitorp as well. That means when you're playing the ship, if you happen to get into a situation where you're rather low HP and you don't really want a gun anymore, you can switch to torpedoes and just be a torpedo boat. And she does perform that role. Her AA armament is nothing to write home about. Only these 13.2mm guns and two dual 40mm guns. And I have to say the Blyskawica's AA is just not that good. So, but I mean, it's a destroyer, so, not that important. In terms of maneuverability, the Blyskawica is pretty good on one aspect and not so good on the other. So in terms of her speed, she's really good. 39 knots, nice and speedy. If you throw on a flag, throw on a speed boost, she can easily hit the mid 40 knots range when you're in game. So that's really good. Turning radius wise, she's alright. I mean, 610 meters is kind of maybe a little bit above average even, but you won't really feel it all that much. The one thing that you might feel is the rudder shift time. The stock rudder shift time is 5.8 seconds. But if you throw on a rudder shift module, it will get better. But 5.8 is nothing to write home about, especially when you consider something like, let's say, the Sims, which can do a rudder shift in 2.7 seconds. So the Blyskawica, nice and fast. Turning, it's okay, but not as fast as some of the other ships in the tier. In terms of concealment, the surface detectability range of 7.5 and an air detectability range of 3.8 is alright, actually. It's pretty decent. It's not as good as, let's say, the Japanese destroyers, but with 12-kilometer guns and 8-kilometer torps, she can invisifire and invisitorp with pretty much no difficulties, even without the concealment expert skill. Throw that in, and she becomes even better. So let's take a look at the modules and what I recommend and how they affect the ship. In terms of modules, here's what I would recommend. On the first slot, you want to get main battery modification 1. That's because the Blyskawica's guns do seem a little bit easier to knock out, so having this I think will reduce that chance a little bit. But I mean, she's still a destroyer, so her guns are going to be fragile. So, you know, any little reduction chance is going to be good. And of course, the reduction in detonation chance is an added bonus if you don't want to run detonation flags. I personally am just starting to run detonation flags on destroyers because I'm just sick and tired of being mysteriously blown up. On the second slot, I would definitely get the gunfire control system modification 1, mostly because it just makes that dispersion a little bit tighter. At 12 kilometers with that module, the Blyskawica's dispersion drops down to 98 meters. Really, really tight, and you're going to see that when I show you in game, the shots can be this nice tight shot that really will hit ships in like almost a block. So it's great. The third slot, I would say get propulsion modification 1 as a destroyer. Propulsion is more important, I think, just because it allows you to keep moving. So get that. And finally, at the final slot here, I would say steering gears modification 2, because once you have the module on, your rudder shift time does decrease to about 4.6 seconds, which is better. I mean, still not as good as something like a Sims, but 4.6 is definitely better than anything the 5-second range. So that's what I would recommend in terms of modules. Let's take a look at the commander skills, and let's see what will make the ship that much better. The first skill you ever want to get on Destroyer is to get situational awareness. You need to know when you're spotted. That for Destroyer is life. So first of all, get that skill. Then I would say get Expert Marksman, just so that your turrets can traverse a bit faster. Again, when a Destroyer engages a Destroyer, you want your turrets to be able to traverse quickly. Third slot, I will get Superintendent just because it gives you an extra charge off both smoke and speed. Really important when you're playing a Destroyer. The fourth row of skills, I would say get Demolition Expert. 3 additional % chance to fire gives you an 11% chance to set fires with your guns. That is really freaking amazing because you've got so many of them and they fire at a pretty good rate. So get that. The reason I'd say avoid getting advanced firing training is because the ship doesn't need it, because it can already invisifire at the beginning. You don't need that extra gun range. On the fifth row, I would say get Concealment Expert. This will drop your detectability more. It'll make your shooting harder to spot, and combine that with the fact that you're already having enough range to invisifire stock without the skill. Having this will just give you a bigger margin. That's the reason why you don't need advanced firing training, and rather you want to get Demolition Expert instead, because you get just more fires, and that's going to result in probably more damage. So once you're done the 15 skills, the 15 really, really important skills, the 16th skill point, I would say get basic firing training just to get your guns to reload faster. After that, the rest is up to you and what you would like to have on your ship. Some people might say, I want to repair a little bit faster, so high alert. Other people might say, I want my torpedoes to reload faster, so then get torpedo armament expertise. So the rest of that is really, really flexible. And that's pretty much it from the port view of the ship. Let's take a look at how she performs in battle. So in this very first engagement, I think the Blyskawica shows how, in a way, her playstyle is kind of similar to the Mahan at tier 7 on the US destroyer line. She's got good guns, which means she can use her guns to engage, and her torps have enough range that they can actually reach out. This is in stark contrast to something like a Kiev, which is almost solely dependent on its guns, and in the event it has to try to use its torpedoes, it's really got to kind of rush in there or find a nice ambush point. But with the Blyskawica, you're able to fire torpedoes off at long range, try to use your guns to set fires, and this is kind of more similar to the Mahan. The New Mexico that I've been firing at initially caught fire, hit the repair, and then of course hit the repair a little bit too early, so my torpedoes hit him, caused flooding, and then if I could get one more fire, there is tons of damage to be dealt because flooding plus fire damage is pretty lethal. This next part shows another one of the strengths of this particular destroyer, which is the fact that she is really, really fast. The Blyskawica is 4 knots faster than the Mahan, so that allows it to almost adopt a little bit of the Russian destroyer playstyle, the ability to sort of relocate really, really quickly to another position and potentially lay some sort of torpedo ambush. Now, this was only, at the time I played this battle, I think it was only my second battle in the Blyskawica, and there's still some things I wasn't familiar about her. But one of the things I noticed afterwards when watching the replay is that the torpedoes also reload incredibly fast on the Blyskawica. And when you look at the numbers, the torpedoes reload in 70 seconds. That is way faster than the Kiev. It is faster than the Mahan, and it's just faster than any other Tier 7 destroyer, which means that what I could have done in this situation is actually I could have just hugged the island, closed the distance, gotten to within 2 kilometers of that New Mexico and dumped torpedoes, and I would have very easily bagged myself that kill with torps. I mean, I still do get the kill because combined with the flooding damage and me shooting at him, it, still sinks and I still get the kill. It just took a little bit longer. One of the other things I really want to point out, and one of the other things I really like about the Blyskawica is the fact that it's got three barrels in the front, 4 barrels in the back, which means that even if your ship is bow on or stern on to a ship, you're able to maintain a solid portion of your firepower. If you think about a US destroyer, when you're facing away from someone or facing towards them, you've only got 2 shells. You got 2 barrels. With the Blyskawica, if you're running away, you've still got 4. So you've still got 80% of a US destroyer's firepower, which is great because it allows you to maintain your ability to engage stuff. Of course, enemy Fubuki came out. Look at how tight those dispersions are, by the way. And it's just easy. Fubuki, no trouble at all. Moving on to a different engagement. So here, myself and Lennon, we were both in Blyskawicas, and we're coming back to cap to defend it. And on the cap, there is a mostly full HP Cleveland and an Ognivoy with about 3/4 of its HP left. Watch how quickly the Ognivoy's HP melts off. First salvo, 2.3k. Second salvo, let's see here. Okay, we don't really get to see how much damage in terms of numbers, but there you go. There's a pretty sizable chunk that came off. And that's the strength of this Blyskawica. It's this ability that if you run into destroyers, that you can really take them down very, very quickly just because of how many HE shells you can fire into the air at once. So, Ognivoy pops smoke, disappears. I pop my smoke, and here I could have done what a Mahan would do, which is just dump torpedoes into the smoke. But the fact that the Cleveland was there, I was like, okay, maybe I should just hold on to it. Anyways, the Ognivoy does pop back up again. Fire salvo, yeah, it didn't lead enough. So a quick adjustment, another salvo out. And earlier I said the rate of fire wasn't great. It's not bad. Like 9.2 rounds a minute is not bad rate of fire. So try to save the torpedoes up for the Cleveland, fire them, underestimate the Cleveland's turn. But still, with guns alone, watch the damage there. 3.3k, next salvo, watch this, 2,800. So in basically 2 salvos, I took off 6,000 HP off of Cleveland with a destroyer. There's another 2.2k, and it's very, very fast because the rate of fire is still pretty good. So the Cleveland, even though it's not yet taken much damage from the rest of my team, just from 2 destroyers shooting at it, sizable chunk of HP off. It's on fire. Cleveland disengaging, and that's just with 2 Blyskawicas really doing the damage. And this shows you that the Blyskawica not only can deal with destroyers relatively effectively, it can also deal with cruisers. And in this way, the Blyskawica sort of inherits the original best things about the Kiev, really. So she not only has sort of the Mahan playstyle, she also has that Kiev playstyle as well, which makes her a very, very versatile ship. Here's another engagement against another cruiser, just under half HP Pensacola, and I see that the team is going to be spotting for me, so do what a lot of Kiev captains would have done. Pop smoke, hide in smoke, start firing. Pensacola, never going to see me in the smoke, so pretty much free to shoot them as I see fit. Right now, the Blyskawica's HE damage, even though it only has 120mm guns, is actually more damage done and higher chance of fire than even the Kiev guns. So the Blyskawica not only has more damage, more fire chance, it's also got the extra barrel. So right now, it's almost, safe to say that per salvo, you might even do more damage with the Blyskawica than the Kiev. So sitting there, pounding away at this Pensacola. For a while, I switched over to AP to see how it would do. Not as effective as HE, but still did reasonable damage. I mean, penetrations alone, there you go, almost 2,000 damage on that salvo. but I just found HE a little bit more reliable, and so there you go, kill secured. So if you're wondering what sort of the playstyle of the Blyskawica is, the best way to describe it is that the Blyskawica takes sort of the best playstyles of the US, the Russian, and a little bit of the Japanese destroyers, and puts them all into one package. So, you know, she's an absolutely fantastic ship. Here's another engagement there. Fubuki just happened to pop up a little bit early. First salvo engine out, and that's the other thing. 7 shells means you have a chance of hitting modules and knocking them out on a more frequent basis, I find. So, you know, this Fubuki realizes he's in trouble, hit the repair kit, tried to turn away, caught him with another shell, took out his engine again. Fubuki pretty much dead in the water. And this next part, this is the part I really like about the Blyskawica. I'm running away from his torpedoes, still able to fire out 4 shells. A US destroyer, when running away, can only get out 2. So that's a substantial amount of firepower that I can maintain while even running away from stuff. So Blyskawica, very, very good destroyer. And if you've got the funds to spare and you're looking for a good ship, buy this, because the Blyskawica is, right now, in my opinion, the best tier 7 destroyer in the game. And had this ship been available during the ranked season, I'm absolutely positive I would have seen a lot more people playing her. And that does it, folks, for this review on the glorious Stronk Polish destroyer, the Blyskawica. And that also means we can start rewriting every joke we had about Russian ships being strong, because seriously, this Polish one is way better. Also, if you like what I'm doing, don't forget to like and sub. Aside from all that, you all have a fantastic day, and I'm looking forward to talking to all of you again soon.